My skin was blistered, scalded by the boiling tea my mother-in-law had thrown at me. Meanwhile, my husband remained silent, sipping his coffee. They thought I was a naive daughter-in-law who would just keep crying, but in reality, in exactly 5 minutes, everything was about to change. Before the story begins, please write in the comments section what part of the country you're watching this story from. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, so this channel can grow and bring even more interesting stories. That morning, the air in the family's luxurious dining room felt colder than usual. A grand crystal chandelier hung over the long marble table, illuminating the breakfast that was already perfectly arranged. Sophia stood by the table, ensuring everything was perfect. Artisan toast with imported preserves, fresh fruit, and, of course, the teapot with her mother-in-law's favorite jasmine tea. Maria, the housekeeper who had worked for the family for many years, took a look around and retreated to the kitchen. She knew that soon the matriarch, Mrs. Albright, would come downstairs, and the atmosphere would transform into a battlefield. And so it was. The sound of high heels, deliberately stomping, echoed down the stairs. Mrs. Albright descended with a scowling expression, wearing a silk dress whose price tag alone could cover Maria's annual salary. She was covered in gold jewelry, excessive for a breakfast at home. Behind her, David, Sophia's husband, walked casually, eyes fixed on his tablet screen. "Good morning, David." "Good morning, Mom," Sophia greeted softly, trying to maintain a neutral tone. David merely mumbled something without looking up from the screen, pulling out a chair and sitting down immediately. Mrs. Albright, for her part, rolled her eyes and pulled her chair with such abruptness that the sharp sound grated on the ears. "Good morning? Why? The air in this house is stuffy. You never get the air conditioning maintained, Sophia. If you're going to take care of the house, do it properly. Do I always have to be the one to notice such basic things?" Mrs. Albright said curtly, fanning her hand in front of her face, as if she were dying of heat. The air conditioning temperature was set at 68 F. Sophia didn't respond. She was already used to it. During the 3 years of her marriage to David, she had transformed into the most patient woman, or more precisely, the most naive, in the eyes of her husband's family. Sophia stepped forward, picked up her mother-in-law's porcelain cup with gold details, and poured the jasmine tea, which still released a delicate steam. The aroma of the flowers filled the air, and she carefully placed the cup in front of Mrs. Albright. Mrs. Albright lifted the cup, blew briefly, and took a small sip. 1 second. 2 seconds. Suddenly, Mrs. Albright's eyes widened. She spat in disgust onto the marble floor. Without any warning, the middle-aged woman's hand moved. Splash! Sophia instinctively recoiled, but it was too late. The hot tea, which had just boiled minutes before, hit her squarely in the face and the lower part of her neck. The heat instantly burned her skin, leaving a searing pain. Jasmine tea leaves clung to her cheek. The brownish liquid dripped down her chin, staining her immaculate white blouse. "What kind of drink is this? It tastes like sewage water," Mrs. Albright shrieked. Her voice thundered, the veins in her neck became visible. She threw the empty cup onto the table with a crash. "Useless woman, you can't even make tea. Do you want to poison me, huh?" Silence descended. Maria, who was peeking from the kitchen door, covered her mouth to suppress a gasp of shock. Upon seeing her employer scalded with hot water, Sophia stood motionless, her face burning, not just from the heat of the tea, but also from the humiliation. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. Tears welled up in her eyes, ready to fall. But Sophia held back. She looked in David's direction. Her husband, the man who had promised to protect her at the altar, merely peeked over his tablet. David raised his own coffee cup, took a slow sip, and said in an indifferent and unconcerned tone, "Oh, Mom, it's not worth stressing over first thing in the morning. It's Sophia. You know how she is? She never does anything right. We'll just ask Maria to make another." There was no panic on his face, not the slightest hint of intention to get up, offer her a tissue, or even ask if his wife's skin was burned. Sophia's heart, which had endured so much pain, slowly died. Everything evaporated, replaced by a cold that rose from her feet to her head. The pain in her face no longer bothered her. Sophia raised her hand and slowly wiped the tea remnants and jasmine leaves from her face. Instead of running to her room to cry, as she usually did, Sophia stood up, looked directly at David, and then at Mrs. Albright, and Sophia smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was a cold, mysterious, and calculated smile that would send shivers down anyone's spine. She turned to the antique wall clock in the corner of the room. The minute hand pointed exactly to 12. 7 a.m. "It's all right, Mom," Sophia said in an incredibly calm voice. "Too calm. Enjoy your tea, because this will be the last luxurious breakfast you'll have in this house." Mrs. Albright frowned, confused, and even more irritated by her daughter-in-law's response. "What are you talking about now? How dare you look at me with those eyes?" Sophia didn't answer. She continued to look at the wall clock. It was a countdown. 5 minutes. She only needed 5 minutes from that moment. The second hand of the clock continued to tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. The sound was incredibly clear to Sophia, as if it were the soundtrack to the spectacle she had meticulously planned. Mrs. Albright still grumbled, complaining about Sophia's wet blouse and how it had ruined her appetite. David remained absorbed in the stock market news on his tablet. To them, everything seemed normal, unaware of the storm that was about to break over their heads, exactly 5 minutes after Sophia's cold smile. At 7:05 a.m., David's cell phone, resting on the table, began to ring loudly. The ringtone broke the silence. David frowned at the name on the screen. Mr. Vance, account manager. David cleared his throat, composed a professional expression, and answered, "Good morning, Mr. Vance. How can I help you at this hour?" The voice on the other end of the line was not audible to Sophia, but the change in David's expression said it all. His eyes suddenly widened, his arrogant face turned pale. His back, previously relaxed, stiffened rigidly. "What do you mean, frozen?" "It's my personal account, Mr. Vance. Don't mess with me. I'm a priority client." David's voice rose in tone, panic becoming evident. Mrs. Albright stopped grumbling and looked at her son, intrigued. "What's wrong, David?" Before David could answer his mother, the phone rang again. This time, a different number. David answered with a slightly trembling hand. "Hello." "Yes, this is David." In the next instant, David held his breath, his jaw tense. Fired for cause? Wait a minute. On what grounds did Human Resources issue a termination letter? "I'm a director at that company. I'm the husband of the majority shareholder. You can't just fire me like this." "Hello? Hello?" David threw the phone onto the table, shattering the screen. His breathing was ragged. His eyes darted around the room, disoriented before fixing on Sophia. Sophia remained in the same position, her blouse still stained with tea, her face still red from the heat, but the smile on her lips was now wider. Sophia slowly pulled out a chair at the end of the table and sat elegantly, crossing one leg over the other. "What is it, David?" Sophia asked, her voice light as a feather, but sharp as a needle. "Problems at the office or with your money?" David swallowed hard. He looked at Sophia with an astonished gaze, as if seeing her for the first time. "Sophia, was it you? You froze my accounts by court order and filed a fraud complaint in the name of the main shareholder, which is you. The company fired me by order of the majority shareholder. What is this, Sophia?" Ah! Mrs. Albright jumped up, her face red with fury. "What? Sophia, are you crazy? You froze your own husband's accounts? You fired your husband? You're just a wife. Your duty is to stay put at home. How dare you do such a thing?" Sophia looked at her mother-in-law with an empty and icy gaze. "Wife, Mom, in your eyes, I was just an ATM, stupid and easy to deceive." David punched the table, making the dishes clatter. "Watch your words, Sophia. Unfreeze my accounts right now. You don't understand anything about business." "Oh, I understand a lot about business, David, including your dirty dealings. Like creating fake suppliers to divert money from my company to your mistress's bank account." Sophia responded, her voice not loud, but echoing in the room like thunder. David's face turned ashen, as if all the blood had drained from it. What are you talking about?" At that exact moment, the doorbell rang loudly. 2 long rings, 1 short. It was the signal Sophia was waiting for, the signal that her reinforcements had arrived. Mr. Johnson, the house security guard, who had been on duty since dawn, rushed to open the front door. The sound of firm footsteps of men's shoes echoed down the hallway towards the dining room. A man in an impeccable dark blue suit appeared at the door. He was handsome, wore glasses, had a defined jawline, and eyes as sharp as an eagle's. It was Michael, the family and Sophia's corporate attorney, and also an old friend from university. In his hands, he carried a leather briefcase full of important documents. Michael stopped at the entrance to the dining room. His eyes immediately caught Sophia's stained blouse and her reddened face. His jaw clenched for a moment, containing his anger, but he suppressed the emotion in the name of professionalism. "Good morning, Sophia. All the documents are ready, as per your instructions," Michael said, his voice deep and commanding. Mrs. Albright pointed at Michael with a trembling finger. "Who is this man? How dare he enter my house uninvited? Mr. Johnson, get this man out." Michael smiled subtly, opening his briefcase on an empty side table. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Albright, but Mr. Johnson works for Miss Sophia. And technically, this is not your house. This is a property legally in the name of Sophia Almeida, purchased with her late father's inheritance long before the marriage." Michael took out a thick red folder and placed it in front of David. "David, inside this folder are two things," Michael said, tapping the folder with his finger. "First, the divorce petition that has already been submitted to family court. Second, the draft of a criminal complaint for breach of trust and falsification of documents that you committed during the last year and a half. The total damage to the company amounts to $3 million. David's legs gave way. He collapsed into the chair. Cold sweat began to trickle down his temples. $3 million. The amount was correct. How did Sophia and her lawyer know? "Sophia, my love." David tried to soften his pleading voice. "This must be a misunderstanding. Don't let that crazy lawyer's talk get to you. I'm your husband. I worked hard for your late father's company. Can't we talk about this calmly?" "We cannot." Sophia stood up, walked closer to David, and leaned down slightly until their faces were at the same level. "There's nothing to talk about, David," Sophia whispered coldly. "Do you think I don't know about the luxury condo in Miami Beach you rented for Jessica? Do you think I'm blind not to see your account movements transferring money for salons and luxury boutiques in her name? Your time is up, Mrs. Albright, still unconvinced, tried to step forward and grab Sophia's arm, but Michael quickly intervened. "Don't touch my client, ma'am," Michael threatened in a low, intimidating voice. "Are you all crazy?" Mrs. Albright shrieked, hysterical. She looked at Sophia with hatred. "Who do you think you are to kick us out, huh? It was my son who grew your father's company. Without David, you're nothing but a spoiled girl who knows nothing about life." Sophia smiled disdainfully. "We'll see if the company dies without David, or if David starves without my money." Sophia straightened up, crossing her arms. She looked at mother and son like a queen pronouncing an execution sentence. "I give you 60 minutes. 1 hour from now," Sophia said firmly. Her voice echoed throughout the room. "Pack your bags, clothes, shoes, and personal items. But beware, don't dare to take a single piece of jewelry, luxury watch, or designer bag purchased with my money or the company's money. If any stolen goods are found in your bags, Michael will immediately call the police." "Sophia, today, you're kicking your own husband out," David shouted in panic. 1 hour, David. "Your time is counting, Maria," Sophia called. Sophia? Maria, who was trembling in a corner of the kitchen, appeared hesitantly. "Yes, Miss Sophia. Please, watch them upstairs. Make sure they only take what belongs to them. If they try anything, call Mr. Johnson," Sophia ordered, without waiting for a response from David or her mother-in-law. Sophia turned and headed to her room on the ground floor. Michael followed her, leaving David and Mrs. Albright paralyzed in the midst of their instant ruin. The arrogance they had built over years crumbled in less than 10 minutes. How could Sophia, the wife known for being so submissive and always silent when mistreated by her mother-in-law, plan such a lethal counterattack? The answer goes back a month earlier. That night, it was raining torrentially. David slept soundly in their bed, snoring as if he didn't have a single sin on his conscience. On his nightstand were 2 cell phones. One he used daily and another intensely black one he always called his work phone. David claimed it contained company secrets and that the code couldn't be known by anyone for years. Sophia believed him. She was an honest woman and never invaded her husband's privacy. But that night, David's black phone vibrated so hard it fell to the floor, pushed by David's hand when he turned in bed. Sophia woke up with the intention of just silencing the vibration so as not to wake him. Sophia picked up the phone. The screen lit up, showing a new message. The notification screen was not completely locked, so the message preview was legible. The sender was Office Babe, but the message content made Sophia's heart stop. "Honey, the transfer for the apartment renovation will be handled tomorrow, right? I already miss hugging you so much. Don't forget to tell your wife you'll have a late meeting. Kiss." Sophia froze. Her hands, holding the phone, trembled violently. Her chest tightened, as if the oxygen in the room had suddenly been sucked out. What Office Babe asked for hugs and apartment transfers? Curiosity mixed with pain won out. Sophia tried to unlock the phone. She tried David's date of birth. Wrong. Their wedding date. Wrong. Then, with trembling hands, she tried a random date, the birthday of a woman named Jessica, David's former personal assistant at the office, whom he had once mentioned in passing. Click. The phone unlocked. It was like opening Pandora's box. The contents of that phone destroyed Sophia's world. There, in a secret messaging app, Sophia read everything. David's obscene conversations with Jessica, photos of them on vacations abroad when David claimed to be on business trips, proof of transfers of tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars. But what devastated her most wasn't the betrayal. She continued scrolling through the conversations and found a message group between David, Jessica, and Mrs. Albright. Sophia's tears fell profusely, wetting the phone screen. In that group, her mother-in-law, who lived in her house, ate from her money and wore jewelry bought with her father's sweat. She was cruelly plotting her ruin. Mrs. Albright wrote, "David convinced Sophia to sign the power of attorney over her assets little by little. As soon as she signs, we'll prove in court that she has a history of depression since her father died. That way, all her fortune will be in your hands, as her husband and guardian." Jessica replied, "Yes, honey, hurry up with that. I can't wait to remodel Sophia's tacky house to our taste." And David, her beloved husband, replied, "Relax, Mom, sweetie. Sophia is stupid. With a little attention, she'll give in quickly. Next month, the papers will all be processed and in my name." That night, Sophia ran to the bathroom. She turned the shower on full blast so the sound of her crying wouldn't be heard. She cried until she lost her voice. She lamented her fate, her stupidity. And her father, who surely cried in heaven seeing his daughter treated like trash. Sophia huddled on the cold bathroom floor for hours. And when dawn came, her tears stopped. The sadness that tore at her chest transformed. It became rage, a burning desire for revenge. Sophia looked at her reflection in the mirror. Swollen eyes, pale face. She swore to herself that she would not allow those parasites to take a single penny of her father's inheritance. That same day, secretly, Sophia contacted Michael. Michael, who already suspected David's movements in the company, immediately hired the best private investigators. For an entire month, Sophia played a role. She pretended to continue being the stupid and submissive wife. She let Mrs. Albright humiliate her every day. She let David come home late with the excuse of extra work. Behind their backs, Sophia and Michael gathered all the evidence. Proof of embezzlement, proof of money flowing to fictitious suppliers, proof of betrayal. All assets were transferred to secure accounts, inaccessible to David. Sophia also secretly convened her father's company's board of directors, showed them proof of David's corruption, and obtained unanimous support to expel him. All preparations were complete. Sophia was just waiting for the right moment to drop her bomb. And that moment came that morning, when the hot tea scalded her face. Back to the present, an hour passed very quickly for those who were in a panic. On the porch of the luxurious house, David and Mrs. Albright stood with defeated faces. Each carried only a medium-sized suitcase with everyday clothes. Mr. Johnson, the security guard, stood near the door, arms crossed and watchful eyes, as if ready to eject them if they dared to cause trouble. The front door opened. Sophia came out, her face already clean. She had changed into an elegant cream-colored business blazer. She looked powerful, far from the image of the wife, who was frequently reprimanded by her mother-in-law. Michael stood by her side. David stepped forward, his eyes red. His male pride was in tatters. "Sophia, please!" David pleaded. His arrogant tone evaporated. "Give me a chance, please. Don't take this matter to the police. If I go to jail, what will become of my future and my mother's?" Mrs. Albright, usually sharp-tongued, was now silent. She didn't dare to look Sophia in the eyes. Only now did she realize that she hadn't been mistreating a fragile rabbit, but waking a sleeping lioness. "Your future, David," Sophia repeated with a crooked smile. "Your future is in the hands of justice. And as for your mother, wasn't she always boasting about how amazing and independent her son was? So, please, survive with that grandiosity out there. Sophia, you can't do this. My car! At least let me take my car," David exclaimed desperately. The European luxury car, purchased on company credit. "You can't," Michael interjected firmly. "You can walk or call a cab. We have a lot of matters to attend to at the office." Sophia turned, but before entering, she looked over her shoulder. "Enjoy real life, David. And don't forget to tell Jessica that her apartment lease was canceled as of today." David's eyes widened. Sophia entered the house, and the large teak door closed with a resounding thud, as if marking the end of David's and his mother's life of luxury. Half an hour later, Sophia and Michael arrived at the company building. Sophia's presence was met with respectful glances from all the employees. The rumor of David's dismissal had spread rapidly. Sophia walked firmly down the corridor towards the CEO's office, the room that had belonged to her late father and had been briefly occupied by David. Sophia opened the door, looked at the large leather chair behind the desk. With a long, relieved breath, Sophia stepped forward and sat down. She placed both hands on the desk. The first step to reclaiming what was rightfully hers had been perfectly completed. Meanwhile, in another part of the hot and dusty city, David and Mrs. Albright got out of a cheap taxi. They were in front of a small rented house in a rundown neighborhood, with peeling paint on the walls and a rusty-looking tin roof. It was the only place David could rent with the money he had left in his wallet, a loan from an old friend who still deigned to answer the phone. Mrs. Albright looked at the house with disgust and horror. "David, are you kidding? We're going to live in a hole like this? Where's the air conditioning? Where's the maid's room?" Mrs. Albright wiped her sweaty neck and began to scratch her arm, bitten by a mosquito flying from a nearby sewer. David sighed, frustrated. Massaging his throbbing temples, he angrily kicked a stone. "Get in, Mom, and don't complain. All my credit cards were declined. We have no money." Mrs. Albright began to cry. A cry of regret? Of course not. A cry for the loss of her comfort. She dragged her suitcase into the cramped house, feeling the hot, stuffy air hit her face. Their true nightmare was just beginning, and Sophia, from behind her large desk, was just beginning to play her game. The afternoon air seemed to bake the skin. Inside a 10x13F rented house, a dusty plastic fan whirred, emitting a deafening creak. The blowing wind brought no coolness, only circulated the hot air radiating from the tin roof. Mrs. Albright sat on a thin foam mattress, placed directly on the cement floor. Her luxurious silk dress looked ridiculous against the backdrop of walls with peeling paint and brownish stains. With her left hand, she incessantly fanned her face with a piece of cardboard from an instant noodle box. "David, where did this junk fan come from? Instead of cooling, it's giving me a cold. And why is the sewer smell coming in here?" Mrs. Albright shrieked in her shrill voice, wiping her neck, which was starting to break out in heat rash. David, sitting on the floor with his back against the wall, held his head in both hands. His expensive shirt was crumpled, the top button was open, and his hair, usually impeccable, was disheveled. He didn't respond to his mother's complaints. His red eyes stared at the broken screen of the phone from the morning's fall. "David, are you listening to me? I want to take a shower. I'm all sticky, but the water in the bathroom is yellow and smells like iron. I'm not going to use dirty water. It'll make me itch. Go buy a gallon of water for me to shower with now. Mrs. Albright demanded again, this time giving David's leg a small kick. David reacted. His patience, already at its limit, ran out. The man who had always spoken gently to his mother brushed her leg away brusquely. Mom, can you just shut up for a bit? Huh? David yelled, his voice hoarse and trembling with stress. Do you think we're on vacation at a 5-star hotel? We were kicked out, Mom. I have $50 in my wallet. Credit cards are blocked. None of my coworkers answer the phone because they know Sophia is in control now. Mrs. Albright was shocked. In all her life, her golden son had never yelled at her. Her mouth dropped open, her eyes wide. Are you yelling at me, David? I'm the victim here. Because of that brazen wife of yours, I have to suffer in this dump, the woman you threw boiling tea at this morning, David retorted irritably. The veins in his neck popped out. You provoked her. If you had managed to control your mouth, we'd still be sleeping in a comfortable bed right now. My plan to get the house deed needed time, Mom. Now it's all ruined. All the assets have been withdrawn. Mrs. Albright turned her face away, her chest rising and falling, containing her anger and pride. Oh, so it's my fault? Bravo, David. If you were a real man and a smart businessman, you would have your own savings instead of depending on that arrogant woman. His mother's words hit David's ego hard. It was true. He was nothing without Sophia. He had spent his time squandering company money to have fun with Jessica, buying her expensive bags and jewelry, without thinking of building an emergency fund. The atmosphere suddenly became silent, interrupted only by the buzz of a mosquito and the prepaid electricity meter outside, which began to beep loudly. Beep! David groaned in frustration, pulling at his hair. Perfect. Now the electricity will go out. I have to go out and try to get a loan. Stay here quietly, Mom. Don't go anywhere. Don't touch anything. David staggered up and left the stuffy house, without looking back, leaving his mother crying copiously, lamenting her bad luck, which had changed in just a few hours. In the late afternoon, as David returned from a coffee shop at the end of the street, having failed to borrow money from 2 friends, an Uber pulled up at the entrance to the alley. A young woman in tight clothes, large sunglasses, and high heels stepped out. She held her phone in the air, looking for reception and confirming the location. It was Jessica. David, who had been walking with his head down, immediately straightened up. A glimmer of hope arose in his heart. Jessica, his mistress, must have come to console him, perhaps to bring help. David ran towards her. Darling Jessica, you came? David forced a smile, opening his arms to hug her. However, instead of returning the hug, Jessica took a step back with an expression of disgust. She lowered her sunglasses, looking David up and down. David's disheveled appearance, the smell of sweat, and the cheap flip-flops he wore made Jessica shudder. David, what the hell is this? What address did you give me? I had to walk down this muddy alley. My shoes are all dirty, you know? Jessica blurted out bluntly. Her voice was sharp and shrill. David's smile slowly faded. Jessica, darling, speak softer. This is my temporary place. Come in. Let's talk inside. Come in where? In that rat hole? Jessica pointed to the row of dilapidated houses with the tip of her long, bright red painted nail. David, you have to explain this to me now. This afternoon, the building management knocked on my door. They said the lease was terminated today, and I had to leave. My access card was deactivated. That's in your name. David. David grabbed Jessica's arm tightly to pull her into the house, afraid of becoming a spectacle for the neighbors. As the thin wooden door closed, Jessica covered her nose with the back of her hand. Inside, Mrs. Albright, who had been lying down, woke up upon seeing Jessica. The same hope arose in the older woman's heart. Oh, it's Jessica. You came at a good time, dear. Go get me a rotisserie chicken from up the street. I haven't eaten since morning. And while you're at it, buy a gallon of water too. The water supply is terrible. Jessica looked at Mrs. Albright, as if she were speaking a strange language. Her eyes narrowed. Excuse me, are you asking me to buy chicken, to walk down that alley, and carry a gallon of water? Well, You're David's girlfriend, Mrs. Albright reprimanded, frowning, displeased with Jessica's reaction. A future daughter-in-law should be dedicated to her mother-in-law. Sophia, if I asked her, would do it immediately. And you, who are younger, still talk back. Hearing Sophia's name again, Jessica's face turned red with anger. The leech, who had clung to David's wealth, finally showed her claws. "Look, put yourself in your place!" Jessica yelled, without any restraint, making Mrs. Albright's eyes widen. "I'm David's girlfriend, because he's a director, because he promised me a luxury apartment and a good life. If I'm going to walk around buying chicken, I might as well date a taxi driver. Get a grip. Wash your mouth out. You easy woman." Mrs. Albright stood up, pointing at Jessica's nose. "How dare you yell at me? You've been enjoying my son's money. Now that we're in trouble, you're rude? Your son's money was his stupid wife's money, wasn't it?" Jessica retorted, equally fierce, letting out a contemptuous laugh. "David, I don't care. Either you sort out my apartment today, or you give me $20,000 in cash now so I can find a new place." David massaged his temples, feeling his head was about to explode. To his left, his mother was screaming. To his right, his mistress was demanding money. "Jessica, please try to understand. My accounts have been frozen by Sophia. I don't have a dime right now. Use your savings to rent a hotel. Tomorrow or the day after, when I sort out my affairs, I'll pay you double." Jessica looked at David with contempt. The adoring gaze she used to give him had disappeared without a trace. "Use my savings, David? Are you crazy? I'm with you to be supported, not to support an unemployed man." Jessica scoffed, adjusting her purse strap. "If you're in misery, it's better we break up. Don't contact me again until you have the key to a new apartment. Goodbye, David. Goodbye, ma'am. Enjoy your mosquitoes." Without any remorse, Jessica turned and left, slamming the door so hard that the hinges creaked. David stood paralyzed, his heart sinking, watching the woman he adored abandon him in his time of greatest need. In a corner, Mrs. Albright cried again, this time accompanied by curses against Jessica and her unhappy fate. In contrast to the heat and confusion in David's house, the CEO's office on the 10th floor of the company building was cool, quiet, and smelled of freshly brewed Arabica coffee. Sophia sat behind her spacious desk. In front of her, a projector displayed a series of financial numbers and graphs. Michael stood next to the projector, holding a laser pointer, while 3 senior auditors sat on the sofa with tense expressions. "So, what's the conclusion, Mr. Michael?" Sophia asked, breaking the silence. Her tone was calm, but full of authority. She didn't look like a woman whose marriage had fallen apart that morning. She looked like a general devising a victory strategy. Michael nodded, pressed a button on the remote, and the slide changed, showing several invoices. "This is our biggest discovery in the last 12 hours, Michael explained, pointing the laser at the name of a supplier company. Logistics Services, LLC. This supplier is registered as a provider of office supplies and marketing event giveaways. In the last year and a half, David approved payments to this company, totaling almost $2 million. Sophia interlaced her fingers under her chin. "And the facts on the ground? The facts on the ground are shameful." Michael smiled wryly. "Our audit team went to the address, indicated on the invoice, the address for Logistics Services LLC. It's an empty warehouse that was foreclosed by the bank 3 years ago. There's no commercial activity. Zero." One of the senior auditors cleared his throat and added, "Exactly, Miss Sophia. We also tracked the movements of the destination account. The money transferred to this company didn't stay there for long. A few hours later, 90% of the amount was transferred to a personal account in Jessica Santos's name." Hearing the name, the corners of Sophia's lips curled into a cold, deadly smile. "Extraordinary. David is quite creative for such an obtuse man. He created a phantom company just to support his parasite. This is not just a violation of business ethics, Sophia," Michael said, closing his laptop and looking at her seriously. "This is private corruption, breach of trust, and money laundering. With this evidence, David doesn't stand a chance of escaping. We can prosecute him, and he risks a prison sentence of several years, perhaps more than 5. Sophia stood up, walked to the large glass window that offered a view of the capital's bustle. She observed the skyscrapers with a distant gaze. Before, she always felt fear. Fear of making decisions. Fear of making mistakes. Fear of disappointing her husband. But pain had forged her. "Mr. Michael," Sophia called without turning around. "Prepare the report tonight. Tomorrow, first thing in the morning, deliver this additional evidence to the FBI. I want David prosecuted as quickly as possible. Don't give him any room to breathe." "Understood, Sophia." Michael gathered his papers. The auditors also stood up and left, knowing that a night of hard work awaited them. After the room emptied, Michael remained, walked to Sophia's desk, poured a glass of water, and placed it near her. "Are you okay?" Michael asked, his tone of voice now gentle, like a friend's. "This day has been very long for you. You haven't rested since the tea incident?" Sophia turned, looked at the glass of water, and then at Michael. Her eyes radiated unwavering determination. "I've never felt so good in my entire life, Michael," Sophia answered honestly. "Every second I imagine David suffering out there. The pain of the burn on my face disappears. We're going to bring them to total misery. Until they realize that biting the hand that feeds them was the most fatal mistake of their lives." Michael smiled subtly, nodding in agreement. He knew that the Sophia of now no longer needed compassion. This woman was savoring her revenge. 3 days passed quickly. Life in the rented house became increasingly suffocating. The money from the sale of one of Mrs. Albright's old gold watches was almost gone, spent on food. David looked like a homeless man, with deep, dark circles under his eyes and an unshaven beard. Meanwhile, in a luxury cafe in an elite shopping mall, Jessica sat cross-legged, sipping an expensive iced coffee paid for by a socialite friend. Jessica complained at length about David's bankruptcy. Feeling like the biggest victim, at the next table sat a well-dressed, middle-aged man with an executive air. The man was on the phone, but his voice was deliberately a little loud, as if he wanted the conversation to be overheard at the next table. The man was a contractor of Michael's, executing a dirty but clever tactic of Sophia's. "Yes, exactly," the man said on the phone. "It's true. David was kicked out of his wife's company. His national bank accounts are all frozen. But here's the kicker. His wife is so stupid." Jessica's ears perked up. She stopped complaining and discreetly glanced at the man at the next table. Her friend, noticing the change in attitude, also fell silent and tried to listen. The man continued the conversation with a little laugh. "His wife doesn't know that in the last year David has been investing in cryptocurrency and has the assets in an offshore digital wallet. I helped him with the transactions. The amount, my God, it must be around $10 million. It's secure? The wife's lawyer can't trace it. David is pretending to be poor now, just to trick his wife and get the divorce quickly. As soon as the papers are signed, he'll withdraw the $10 million." Jessica's eyes widened. $10 million. An untraceable digital wallet. Jessica's heart raced. She bit her lower lip. No wonder David had asked her to use her savings. After all, he had $10 million hidden. Jessica felt like an idiot for having abandoned David so hastily 3 days ago. If she had held on a little longer and participated in David's charade, the $10 million would have fallen into her lap. The man at the next table pretended to look at his watch, stood up, and left after finishing his call, leaving the bait that Jessica had completely swallowed. Without losing a second, Jessica said goodbye to her friend, ran to the parking lot, started her car, and sped through the capital's traffic, back to the foul-smelling alley she had despised 3 days ago. That afternoon, soft, repeated knocks were heard on David's door. David, who was sleeping on the floor, woke up startled, opened the door reluctantly, but his eyes widened when he saw who was there. "Jessica!" David couldn't believe his eyes. Jessica didn't come empty-handed. She carried 2 large plastic bags with expensive food, fruit, and fresh drinks. Her face displayed the sweetest smile she could manage. "David, my love," Jessica said in a syrupy, feigned tone, like a cat asking for cuddles. She entered without caring about the musty smell of the house. "Jessica, what are you doing here?" David asked, confused. "David, I'm sorry about the other day," Jessica placed the bags on the floor and hugged David's arm tightly, resting her head on his sweaty shoulder. She discreetly held her breath. I was in shock, David. I reacted badly because I panicked about being kicked out of the apartment. But after 3 days of thinking, I realized I can't live without you, in wealth and in poverty. I want to be with you. David was stunned. His ego, completely shattered, slowly began to mend. He felt touched. He felt that there was still someone who loved him sincerely, regardless of money. Poor David. He had no idea that Jessica was putting on a play, hoping to get a share of the fictitious $10 million. Mrs. Albright, who had just returned from the public bathhouse at the end of the alley, stared wide-eyed at Jessica's return. "What is that snake doing here again?" Mrs. Albright exclaimed loudly. Jessica quickly released her hug, looked at Mrs. Albright, and smiled sweetly, full of falsehood. "Mommy, forgive me. I brought your favorite food, your favorite takeout from a fancy restaurant. I know I made a mistake. I want to stay here and support David and you." Mrs. Albright looked at the food containers. Her stomach growled, remembering she had only eaten instant noodles for the past 2 days. Her pride crumbled before hunger. With a reluctant expression, Mrs. Albright snatched the food. "It's good that you acknowledge your mistake, but don't think that just because you bring food, you can do whatever you want here." Sophia, who monitored everything remotely through her contractor's reports, laughed contentedly in her office. The greedy fish had fallen back into the poisonous net. It was only a matter of time before they started devouring each other in that murky water. Jessica's charade didn't last long. Enduring a small, hot space without proper ventilation was not the specialty of a mistress accustomed to central air conditioning. After just 2 days in the house, her pretense began to crumble. She only endured because of the illusion of the $10 million dancing in her head. Every night, she tried to get David to talk about cryptocurrency or secret savings, but David, who actually had nothing, always responded with complaints about Sophia, leaving Jessica increasingly frustrated. The breaking point happened on a scorching afternoon. David had gone to the police station, as he had received the first official notification. Jessica and Mrs. Albright were left alone in the house that felt like an oven. After eating takeout that Jessica had paid for out of her own pocket, Mrs. Albright lay on the bed, looked at the dirty dishes and the pile of David's coffee cups in a corner that were starting to attract flies. "Jessica," Mrs. Albright called without turning, eyes closed. "Wash those dishes and dirty cups. The smell is making me sick, and while you're at it, scrub the bathroom floor outside. It's slippery." "What if I fall?" Jessica, who was filing her nails, suddenly stopped, slowly turned her head to look at the older woman's back. Her blood boiled. "Are you asking me to wash dishes and scrub a public bathroom outside?" Jessica's voice trembled, containing explosive anger. "Of course. Who else? Me?" "Mrs. Albright replied naturally, not feeling there was anything wrong with her order. "You're the one who wanted to stay here. Show your dedication like Sophia. If I asked her, I wouldn't even need to ask her to wash the dishes. She'd even give me massages at 2 a.m. without complaining." Hearing Sophia's name again, Jessica's patience ran out. She threw the nail file to the floor. The illusion of the $10 million no longer offset the daily humiliation. "Get up," Jessica yelled, pulling with force the thin blanket covering Mrs. Albright's legs. Mrs. Albright jumped up, her face red with fury. "What are you doing? You're very rude to an older person. An older person who doesn't respect herself?" Jessica pointed directly at Mrs. Albright's face. "Do you think I'm Sophia, stupid and easy to use as a doormat? I'm here waiting for your son to get his money, not to be your maid. If you want the dishes washed, wash them yourself. You have hands, don't you?" Mrs. Albright wouldn't accept it. She had always been the absolute ruler at home. To be confronted by her son's mistress, who dared to challenge her, made her lose control. She grabbed a broom near the door and pointed it at Jessica. "You brazen hussy, you easy woman. After living off my son's wife's money, now you want to boss me around here? Get out of here, leech." Mrs. Albright hit Jessica's legs with the broom. "Ow! Are you crazy?" Jessica screamed, trying to defend herself, but she didn't stay still. She stepped forward and pushed Mrs. Albright with all her strength. Mrs. Albright lost her balance, stumbled backward, and crashed into the plastic fan, which fell to the floor in pieces, switching off. The already hot room suddenly became airless. "Brazen! How dare you push me?" Mrs. Albright shrieked, hysterical, her hair disheveled. She grabbed a thin pillow and threw it at Jessica's face. A shameful fight began in that cramped house. Hair pulling, scratching, and insults that could be heard by the house next door. Some neighbors peeked through the window, half scared, half curious. "Let him be. That way your son will see what a witch his mother is," Jessica yelled, freeing herself from Mrs. Albright. Her lipstick was smeared on her cheek. Jessica quickly grabbed her purse and belongings, throwing them haphazardly into a small travel bag. She no longer cared about the $10 million. Even if it existed, she felt she couldn't live under the same roof as that monster. "Go away and don't come back, you bad omen," Mrs. Albright ordered, panting, clutching her chest. "Not even if you paid me, would I come back to this dump," Jessica replied, spitting on the floor, right in front of Mrs. Albright's feet, before running out with her bag in hand. The door remained open. Mrs. Albright was alone in the middle of the room, which looked like it had been hit by a hurricane. Broken dishes, the damaged fan, and the hot air entering mercilessly. Mrs. Albright looked around. Suddenly, a strange tightness in her chest attacked her. She sat exhausted on the edge of the bed. Her hands trembled as she touched her cheek, slightly scratched by Jessica's nails. For the first time since being kicked out of the luxury house, a thought crossed Mrs. Albright's mind. A thought she had always pushed away due to her immense pride. She remembered Sophia, who always prepared her hot tea when she was sick. Sophia, who always remained silent when yelled at, just lowering her head and apologizing, even when she was not at fault. Sophia, who never physically harmed her, no matter how cruel her words were. A tear of very late regret streamed from the corner of Mrs. Albright's eye. She realized her stupidity in satisfying her ego and supporting her son in a betrayal with a woman like Jessica. She had thrown away a precious jewel, traded heaven for this hell, but it was too late, and an even greater storm was about to hit her family. The police notification, instigated by Sophia, had just reached David's hands, ready to drag them to the bottom of the abyss. The police notification, with its official letterhead, was crumpled on the flimsy wooden table of a dimly lit diner. David stared at the paper with an empty gaze. The words "defendant" for the crime of breach of trust seemed to mock what remained of his dignity. After returning from the precinct, where he had only been informed of his status, he found the house in chaos, the fan broken, dishes scattered, and his mother crying in a corner, lamenting Jessica's escape with the rest of the food. David's world collapsed. He had no money, no power. His mistress had abandoned him, and now the threat of prison was at the door. Desperation is a dangerous poison for a man with such a large ego. Instead of reflecting on his mistakes, his brain sought the dirtiest shortcut. That night, with the last $250, he managed to get by, secretly selling one of his mother's gold earrings. David met with Spike. Spike? He was a local thug who frequented that diner. A stocky man, dark-skinned, with a dragon tattoo on his right arm, he smoked a cigarette while swirling his coffee cup. "So, what do you want me to do, boss?" Spike asked in a hoarse voice, blowing cigarette smoke into David's face. "With $250 these days, you can't do anything, not even for gas for my boys' bikes." David swallowed hard, enduring the smell of smoke. He leaned forward, whispering with a cunning tone, "Spike, this is just an advance. The target is my ex-wife. She's rich and lives alone in that luxury house. I just want you to go there and scare her to death, threaten to burn down the house or break her car. The goal is for her to be so shaken that she withdraws the complaint with the police and gives me millions in compensation." Spike raised an eyebrow. "A woman alone, just to scare. No killings, right?" "No, Spike, no killings. If she dies, I don't get the inheritance," David quickly interrupted. "Just make her cry and beg. When she withdraws the complaint and the money falls into my account, I'll give you a clean $50,000. Hearing the amount of $50,000, Spike's eyes gleamed with greed. He wiped the rest of the coffee from his lips with the back of his hand and extended his rough hand. Deal. $50,000. Give me the address. Tonight, me and 2 others will go there. You can wait for the good news while you sleep in that smelly hole of yours. David smiled. He shook Spike's hand enthusiastically. In his head, he already imagined Sophia on her knees, terrified, calling him crying, begging him to save her. David felt on top of the world. He felt he was smarter than Sophia's expensive lawyer. But he forgot one thing. The Sophia of now was not the Sophia of before, and the luxury house that Spike would visit that night had been transformed into an impenetrable fortress. At 2 a.m., the luxury residential area where Sophia lived was silent. Only the sound of crickets and the wind blowing could be heard. A black pickup truck, with a noisy engine, stopped about 50 yards from Sophia's house gate. 3 men got out, dressed in leather jackets, hats, and each carrying a metal baseball bat. Spike led the way, stealthily approaching the tall iron gate. "Is this the house, Spike?" "Damn, it's huge. Looks like a palace," one of his men whispered. His eyes were marveling at the large European-style pillars. "Don't be a bumpkin. Focus. We climb the side wall, kick in the front door, and break 1 or 2 windows to make her panic," Spike ordered. They began to scale the wall with difficulty. What they didn't know was that since David's expulsion, Michael had completely renovated the house's security system. In every corner of the garden were hidden high-resolution infrared surveillance cameras that captured sound and image with the clarity of day. Inside the house, in her private office, Sophia sat comfortably in her chair. She wore elegant wine-colored silk pajamas. She held a cup of warm chamomile tea. On her desk, a large monitor displayed the movements of the 3 thugs in real time. Michael stood beside Sophia's desk, arms crossed, with a disdainful smile. Behind Michael were 4 robust men, dressed in black tactical suits. They were professional security guards hired from a VIP protection company. "David is really stupid," Michael murmured, shaking his head. "He sends a bunch of petty thugs to a house with a central bank-level security system. Let them be, Michael. It's late-night entertainment." Sophia took a sip of her tea. She didn't seem panicked at all. "Wait until they enter the porch so their faces are clearly captured by the main camera." Outside, Spike and his men managed to jump into the garden. They stealthily approached the porch. Spike raised his baseball bat, preparing to smash the large window next to the main door. Crash! The glass shattered into 1,000 pieces. "Open the door, you arrogant woman. Open it or I'll burn this house down," Spike shouted, hitting the teak door with his bat. However, instead of a terrified woman's scream, the door opened automatically in silence. Spike and his men stood still, confused. They looked at each other. The living room was in total darkness. "Do we go in, Spike?" one of them asked, hesitant. "Of course. We're not going to be afraid of an empty house." Spike entered with his chest puffed out. But they had barely taken 3 steps when all the crystal lights in the room suddenly turned on, blinding them. Before they could adjust their vision, 4 men in tactical suits emerged from behind the pillars. Twice their size, the security guards didn't carry bats. They crossed their arms, emanating an intimidating aura that made Spike's men's knees tremble. From the top of the spiral staircase, Sophia appeared elegantly. Michael was on her right. "Good evening, gentlemen," Sophia greeted, her soft voice echoing in the room. "Can I help you with anything that justifies breaking my house window at 2 a.m.? Spike swallowed hard. His courage vanished upon seeing Sophia's security guards, but his thug pride still resisted. He pointed his bat at Sophia. "Don't act tough. I was sent by David, your husband. He wants you to withdraw the police complaint right now and hand over the assets, or your safety tonight is at risk," Spike threatened, trying to sound scary, though his voice trembled a little. Sophia smiled sweetly. "Ah, David sent you to threaten my safety?" "Yes. So, you're scared, aren't you?" Spike insisted. "Very scared," Sophia laughed. Her laughter sounded like a death knell. Sophia turned to Michael. "Dr. Michael." The microphone above the chandelier recorded this gentleman's confession clearly. Michael held up a tablet and played Spike's voice, which mentioned David's name with crystal clear audio quality. Very clearly, Miss Sophia. Perfect evidence for additional charges of extortion, property damage, and death threats. The prison sentence is several years, Michael calmly replied. Spike's and his men's faces turned pale. They realized they had fallen into a terrible trap. You wanted $50,000 from David. Sophia slowly descended the stairs, her gaze penetrating. David is indigent. He doesn't have a dime to pay you. He just used your stupidity to send you to jail in his place. Sophia stopped on the last step, looked at her 4 security guards. Take them. Don't harm them. Deliver this recording and these 3 rats to the nearest police precinct. Tonight, the 4 security guards advanced and immobilized Spike and his men with disconcerting ease. There was no resistance. They were dragged out of the house, struggling in fear. Sophia resumed sipping her tea, which was starting to cool. David's desperate plan had become the golden bullet Sophia would use to take him down publicly. The next morning, David woke up with a smile on his face. He reached into his pocket for the cheap phone he had bought. He expected a call from Sophia, crying hysterically. He expected a call from Spike, reporting his success. But there were no calls. David began to get restless. He tried to call Spike, but the number was deactivated. A bad feeling ran down his spine. David left the house, washed his face with the rusty-smelling well water, and sat down to think. He failed. That idiot must have failed. David cursed silently. Sophia must have security. If this continues, I'll really go to jail next week. David's cunning brain went back to work. He remembered Sophia's greatest weakness. She always cared about her father's company's reputation. She didn't like being the center of negative attention. David's eyes lit up. Social media. If he couldn't attack her physically, he would attack her mentally, in front of millions of people. David rushed into the house, saw his mother sitting on the bed, staring blankly, her face looking old, tired, and very sad. Perfect. She was the ideal prop for his drama. Mom, come here. Sit leaning against this wall with the peeling paint. Hurry, David ordered, roughly pulling Mrs. Albright's hand. Ow, you're hurting me, David. What do you want? Mrs. Albright protested. Cry, Mom. Pretend to cry. Or remember our suffering here. To make the tears real, I'm going to record a video, David said, adjusting the phone camera, making sure the framing captured the most miserable angle of the house. Dirty clothes, disheveled hair, sad face. Everything was ready. David pressed the record button. His expression changed instantly. He began to sob, forcing tears to come out. Hello, everyone, David's voice trembled. My name is David. I'm making this video because I don't know what else to do. My mother and I have been kicked out of our own home, without a single cent. Beside him, Mrs. Albright, understanding her son's game, began to cry, covering her face with her cheap blouse. My wife, Sophia, whom you might know as a good person, turned out to be very cruel, David continued, looking at the camera with a supplicating air. After her father died, she changed. She seized all the fortune that I helped build from scratch for her company. She accused me of things I didn't do, slandered me with accusations of embezzlement, but it's all lies. She put me and my elderly mother on the street because she wanted to keep everything to marry her lawyer. David wiped his crocodile tears. I'm not asking for the fortune, friends. I'm just asking for justice. Please help make this video go viral so that justice is on the side of a small man like me. Click. The video stopped. David smiled, satisfied, published the video on all his social media, tagging socialite accounts and news portals. He knew exactly how the internet worked. The narrative of the wronged husband and mother-in-law, unjustly treated by an arrogant wife, was a gold mine that would explode in hours. And so it was. By noon, the video was viral. The comments section on Sophia's company's social media filled with insults from people who didn't know the facts. Boycott her company. The owner is crazy for money. What cruelty. Kicking her own mother-in-law out. Ungrateful wife. She forgot the husband who supported her from the beginning. In her office, Sophia looked at her tablet, which kept receiving hate notifications. In front of her, Michael paced back and forth, his face red with anger. Coward! He hides behind his mother's skirt and fake tears. Michael punched Sophia's desk. Sophia, this can't go on. Our stock could plummet. Our clients could cancel contracts because of this rumor. Sophia calmly put down the tablet. There was no panic on her face. On the contrary, she laughed. A laugh that made Michael frown. Why are you laughing, Sophia? This is a high-level public relations crisis, Michael exclaimed. Michael, do you remember the saying, never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake? Sophia rested her chin on her hand. David just dug his own grave and willingly lay in it. And now he's asking all of America to bury him alive. Sophia stood up, adjusting her elegant blazer. Her gaze sharpened, full of absolute dominance. Prepare the event hall on the ground floor. Contact all national television journalists, online news portals, and also invite the socialite accounts that viralized his video, Sophia ordered in a firm voice. We will not respond with a video of tears. We will respond with a hammer. 3 hours later, the main event hall of Sophia's company building was packed. Camera flashes fired incessantly. Dozens of journalists with microphones from various TV stations and online media outlets vied for the best spot in front of a small stage. The atmosphere was one of great expectation. Everyone was curious to hear the clarification from the ungrateful wife who had become public enemy number one. Exactly at 3 p.m., the double door next to the stage opened. Silence fell. Sophia entered. She did not lower her head, wore no sunglasses, and did not look sad at all. She walked with the posture of a queen, wearing an impeccable white suit that radiated authority and class. Behind her, Michael accompanied her, carrying a black briefcase that contained a time bomb. Sophia sat at the center of the conference table. Michael stood by her side. Hundreds of cameras pointed at Sophia's face. Good afternoon, dear journalists, Sophia greeted, her voice calm but echoing powerfully. Thank you for your presence. I will not waste your time with drama or tears. I am here not to defend myself, but to present facts and data. After this, I will let the public's common sense judge. The journalists began to extend their microphones. One of them in the front row asked in an accusatory tone, Miss Sophia, what is your response to your husband's video claiming to have been expelled with nothing and accusing you of abandoning your mother-in-law? Sophia smiled subtly. She signaled to Michael. Michael turned on the large projector behind them. The giant screen lit up, displaying a professional slide presentation. Before we talk about the expulsion, Michael's baritone voice took over. Let's talk about honesty. The first slide changed, showing dozens of David's bank statements, with astronomical values highlighted in red. This is the financial record of our former director, David. For the last year and a half, he claimed to have built this company from scratch. The facts prove that, in reality, he was eroding it from within. We filed a criminal complaint against David, with evidence of a $3 million diversion to a fictitious supplier's account, Michael explained firmly. A murmur of shock was heard among the journalists. The cameras fired again. Where did those $3 million go? Michael pressed the remote. The slide changed, showing a photo of Jessica displaying a luxury bag on social media, alongside proof of transfers of hundreds of thousands of dollars from David's account to Jessica's personal account. The money was used to finance a mistress's luxurious lifestyle. Therefore, if Mr. David claims to have no money now, it is because he spent it on his mistress, not because my client took it from him. The journalist who asked the question fell silent, taking notes hastily. The poor husband narrative began to crumble. As for the mistreated mother-in-law, Sophia took the microphone. Her voice grew cold. Next slide, Mr. Michael. The giant screen now displayed a CCTV recording from Sophia's home, the dining room. The time was exactly that morning of the incident. There was no sound, but the images were sharp and high resolution. All the journalists in the room held their breath. They watched as Sophia politely served the hot tea. Then they saw Mrs. Albright drink, spit on the floor, and deliberately throw the still steaming tea directly at Sophia's face and neck. They also saw David remain silent, reading his tablet, with no intention of defending his wife. Silence. The hall was as silent as a tomb. The recording was too brutal, too real, debunking the entire lie about the ungrateful daughter-in-law. Did you see with your own eyes? Sophia said slowly, touching her neck, which perhaps still had a slight mark. For 3 years of marriage, I lived in a small hell created by a cruel mother-in-law and a traitorous, cowardly husband. If expelling the parasites that were destroying my home and my life is being ungrateful, then yes, I am the most ungrateful woman in the world, and I'm proud of it. Many journalists in the room shook their heads in complete sympathy for Sophia. Public hatred had turned 180 degrees in minutes, but Sophia was not yet finished. And one last thing, in his video, Mr. David asked for justice as a small, helpless man. No. Michael pressed the remote one last time. An audio recording echoed through the room. It was Sophia's conversation with Spike from the previous night. Spike's voice was clearly heard. I was sent by David, your husband, threatened to burn the house. Hand over the assets or your safety tonight is at risk. This small, helpless man, Sophia continued, fixing her gaze on all the cameras, ensuring David would be watching, sent 3 thugs last night to vandalize my house and threaten my life to extort money from me. Those 3 men and all this evidence are already in the hands of the police. Sophia stood up. The press conference ended with a final devastating statement. I, Sophia Almeida, as the rightful owner of this company, declare that I will never settle. I will not withdraw the complaint, and I will ensure that David rots in prison to pay for all his crimes. Thank you. Good afternoon. Without answering further questions, Sophia turned and left the stage with Michael, leaving the journalists scrambling to report the day's most explosive story. The Queen had silenced all the barking dogs with a single blow. While Sophia's press conference was broadcast live on several news channels, David sat on the porch of his house, fanning himself. He had just been counting the increase in followers on his social media, fueled by the false public sympathy he had created. He felt like a rising celebrity, but suddenly a torrent of messages began to flood his phone. They were not compliments, but much more violent insults than before. Scoundrel. Traitor begging for compassion. Mother-in-law from hell. She deserved to be kicked out. Get ready to wear a prison uniform. Your thug has already been caught. David was shocked. His heart raced. He quickly opened one of the links sent to him in the comments. The link led to the recording of Sophia's press conference. David's hands trembled as he watched. His eyes widened at the evidence of transfers to Jessica. His breath caught when he saw the CCTV recording of his mother throwing the tea at Sophia. And his world ended when he heard Spike's voice being played for hundreds of journalists. David dropped his phone. The screen cracked. The sound of the news of his ruin still echoed. No, it can't be, David stammered, pulling at his hair in a panic. That bitch, Sophia, where did she get all this evidence? He turned and rushed into the house. Mrs. Albright was lying down eating some potato chips. Mom, get up. We have to leave now. David started throwing clothes into a suitcase haphazardly. Go where, David? What's wrong with you? Mrs. Albright didn't want to get up. We've been exposed, Mom. The video backfired. Sophia revealed everything to the media. Jessica, the hot tea, the thugs. The police must be coming. Mom, I don't want to go to jail, David cried hysterically. Tears of genuine fear streamed down his face. Mrs. Albright's eyes widened, pale. The CCTV? Sophia showed that? Now what, David? My bridge club friends must have seen it. Where will I hide my face? To hell with your bridge club. Our lives are ruined. Let's go to the train station. Fast. David forcibly closed the suitcase, grabbing his mother's hand, dragging her out. But as soon as he stepped out the door, the sharp sound of a police siren echoed down the alley. A patrol car and 2 unmarked cars stopped at the alley entrance, blocking the only exit. 4 plainclothes officers and 2 uniformed officers got out. David's knees buckled. The suitcase fell from his hands. He tried to turn back, look for an exit, but his mind locked up. He was paralyzed with fear. The officers approached quickly. One of them, holding a red folder, the same one Michael had delivered, stopped in front of David. David Antunes? The inspector asked, comparing the dejected face in front of him with the photo in the report. David couldn't answer. His mouth opened, but his voice was caught in his throat. We're from the FBI. You are under arrest on suspicion of breach of trust, money laundering, and attempted extortion with violence. This is the arrest warrant. The inspector showed the official document. Accompany us to the precinct for questioning. You have the right to an attorney. 2 other officers stepped forward and quickly handcuffed David's hands behind his back. The cold sound of metal cuffs echoed. Click! No, officer, please. It's a misunderstanding. I was framed by my wife. I'm not a criminal. David struggled, crying like a child. Mom, help me, Mom! Mrs. Albright, who was in shock, screamed hysterically. She lay on the ground, hugging the legs of one of the officers. Don't take my son, please. He's a good boy. He's my pride. Sophia is the bad one. Arrest Sophia! Not my son, Mrs. Albright shrieked, her voice hoarse, her tears mixing with the dust on the ground. It was the karma of her slanderous video, paid for in full. I'm sorry, ma'am. Explain that in court. Do not obstruct justice, the inspector said firmly, signaling for David to be taken away. David was dragged away from his mother, past the neighbors who were now insulting him. The man who was once so arrogant and felt above the law was now pushed into a police car, head bowed, crying over his ruin. On the dirty ground, Mrs. Albright was left alone. She pounded the ground, screaming David's name until her voice disappeared. There was no daughter-in-law to help her up. There was no maid to serve her hot tea. The arrogance of that family had been reduced to dust, crushed by the intelligence of a wounded wife. Thump, 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 the sound of the judge's gavel echoed in the cold family courtroom. Those 3 taps were not just the sound of wood hitting, but the symbol of the breaking of a chain that had strangled Sophia for 3 years. Petitioner's request granted in its entirety. Divorce decreed due to the exclusive fault of the respondent. The clerk is ordered to send a copy of this judgment. The presiding judge's voice reading the divorce decree sounded like the most beautiful melody to Sophia's ears. She sat upright in her seat, wearing a light blue suit that symbolized her new freedom. Her face was radiant. There wasn't a single tear of sadness. In the defendant's place, there was an emptiness. David was not present. He was in pretrial detention, awaiting his criminal trial. He was represented by a public defender, as he could not afford any law firm. David could only attend the divorce via video call on a small screen in the corner of the room. On the screen, David wore an orange prison uniform. His head was shaved. He looked dejected, thin, with deep dark circles under his eyes. The arrogant man who used to tell Sophia to shut up was now silenced by fate. During the hearing, David kept his head down, occasionally wiping tears with the back of his handcuffed hands. Hearing concluded, the judge declared. Sophia took a deep breath. A smile of relief spread across her lips. The burden that oppressed her evaporated. Michael, sitting beside her, smiled proudly. Congratulations, Sophia. Today you are officially free. Full control over yourself and your assets has been completely restored. Thank you, Michael. Without your work in gathering all the evidence, I would still be trapped with him. Sophia squeezed Michael's hand tightly. Before leaving, Sophia paused and looked at the screen where David's face was still visible. He looked at her, his lips trembling, as if he wanted to apologize. Sophia felt neither anger nor contempt. She merely looked at her ex-husband with indifference, as if he were a stranger. She slowly nodded her head, a final goodbye, and left. The morning sunlight greeted Sophia as she left the courthouse. The wind blew softly. From that moment on, she was no longer the submissive Mrs. Antunes. She was Sophia Almeida, the owner of her own throne. That afternoon, the lobby of Sophia's company suddenly became chaotic. 2 security guards tried to restrain a middle-aged woman who was forcing her way in. It was Mrs. Albright, but her appearance was far from the lady who wore jewelry and silk dresses. She wore a faded floral dress, a cheap cardigan, and flip-flops that seemed too big for her. Let me go. Don't you know who I am? I'm Miss Sophia's mother-in-law, the owner of this building. I want to see her now. Mrs. Albright shrieked, struggling. The receptionist called the management floor. Soon after, the VIP elevator door opened. Sophia emerged, accompanied by Michael. Her presence silenced the lobby. Upon seeing Sophia, Mrs. Albright's eyes filled with tears. She forgot her pride. She threw herself onto the marble floor, crawling and trying to hug Sophia's ankles. "Sophia, my daughter. My dear daughter-in-law," Mrs. Albright cried, her voice hoarse and moving, to anyone who didn't know her true nature. "Please, daughter, withdraw the police complaint. David is suffering in prison. He was attacked by other inmates. Have pity on him. He was your husband. You loved him." Sophia didn't move. She let dozens of employees and visitors witness her ex-mother-in-law's drama. "Get up, ma'am. Don't humiliate yourself in public," Sophia said in a neutral tone. "I won't get up until you promise to free David," Mrs. Albright insisted, clinging to the hem of Sophia's pants. "I apologize. I know I made a mistake. I was mean to you, but please, don't destroy David's life. Let us come back to your house. I promise to be your maid. I'll make your tea every morning." Hearing the word tea, Sophia's jaw clenched, her gaze sharpened. "Tea, ma'am." Sophia bent down, looking directly into Mrs. Albright's eyes. "Do you still remember the jasmine tea you threw in my face? The burn hurt for weeks. At that moment, did you think about my pain? Did David care?" Mrs. Albright fell silent. "And when you conspired with Jessica to commit me to a psychiatric hospital to steal my father's inheritance, did you think about showing mercy?" Sophia continued, her voice rising in tone. "You didn't make a mistake. You deliberately planned to destroy my life." Sophia recoiled, freeing herself from Mrs. Albright. She signaled to Michael. Michael took a manila envelope from his jacket and handed it to Sophia. Sophia dropped the envelope on the floor, in front of Mrs. Albright. "Inside are $5,000 in cash," Sophia said coldly. "It's not a settlement, it's a pittance. Use the money to hire a cheap lawyer or buy a bus ticket to your hometown. But remember one thing," Sophia whispered, so only Mrs. Albright could hear. "Never appear before me again. If you show up near my house or my office again, I guarantee you'll join David in prison for conspiracy and falsification of documents." Sophia straightened up. "Security, please escort this lady out of the building and ensure she never enters again." Sophia turned and returned to the elevator. Behind her, Mrs. Albright cried, clutching the envelope. Her pride was in pieces. Those $5,000 were the hardest slap in her life. She finally realized there was no turning back. The grand lady had become a beggar in the lobby of the building she had almost controlled. 3 months passed quickly. David's case proceeded in court. With irrefutable evidence, the district attorney's office charged him with multiple crimes. On sentencing day, the courtroom was packed with journalists. David sat in the defendant's box, looking much older. He was thin, his shaved head beginning to grow hair, his gaze empty. In the back, Mrs. Albright sat alone, her face covered by a black scarf. The judge banged the gavel. "The court finds the defendant guilty of the crimes of private corruption, breach of trust, and attempted extortion with violence. The defendant is sentenced to a prison term of 7 years and a fine of $200,000, convertible into 6 months of imprisonment in case of non-payment." Thump. The sentence was passed. 7 years in prison. David collapsed in tears. 7 years of his life spent in a cell. All because he didn't value the perfect wife he had. "David, my son." Mrs. Albright cried before fainting. As he was led to the prison transport van, David's punishment was not yet over. As he descended the stairs, he saw a luxury red sports car parked in the VIP zone. In the passenger seat was Jessica, looking stunning, with designer sunglasses and a diamond necklace. At the wheel, an older, wealthy man. Jessica had come to witness his downfall. When their eyes met, she lowered her sunglasses and smiled at him with disdain. She waved, as if to say, "Goodbye, failure." The man beside her laughed and sped off, leaving David covered in dust. "Jessica!" David screamed, struggling like a madman. "You bitch! Give me my money back!" "Come on, quiet down," a police officer said, pushing him into the dark van. The metal door closed. There David would spend the next 7 years, haunted by his mistakes, his mistress's betrayal, and Sophia's victorious smile. The next day, in a grungy bus terminal, Mrs. Albright sat in the waiting room. Sophia's envelope was all she had left. She dragged her suitcase onto a hot, stuffy bus. She had to return to her rural hometown. her parents' crumbling house, where the stares of contempt and the whispers of neighbors awaited her. Her throne of arrogance had been reduced to ashes. A year later, the executive boardroom on the 15th floor was filled with applause. At the head of the table, Sophia smiled, radiating the charisma of a true leader. Her hair was shorter. Her blazer was a warm peach tone. "Thank you all," Sophia said. "A 200% increase in profits is proof that when we remove the parasites, the tree can grow much stronger." Since Sophia took control, the company had prospered. Employees were happier, and clients trusted her. She had studied, worked hard, and proved that she was not the stupid woman David and his mother-in-law thought. When the room emptied, Michael entered with 2 coffees. "Good job, Madam President," he joked. "Your speech moved everyone." Sophia laughed. "Don't exaggerate, Michael. All of this is thanks to you." Michael smiled. For the past year, he had always been by her side as a lawyer, advisor, and protector. He had given her space to heal her wounds. "By the way," Michael said, a little embarrassed, "are you free this weekend? That art exhibition you mentioned. Tickets are already on sale. If you're not busy, maybe you'd like to go with me." Sophia stopped tidying her papers. She looked into Michael's eyes. There was a sincerity she had never found in David. The trauma of the past had built high walls around her, but Michael had proven his loyalty with actions, not words. Sophia smiled, a genuine smile. "Maybe. Saturday, 10 a.m. I'll pay for lunch to make up for the ticket." Michael laughed, relieved. "Deal, boss? I'll pick you up at 9:30. Sophia looked out the window. The Los Angeles sky was blue and clear as the future that was now in her hands. She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the peace that enveloped her. She had survived. She had won. That morning, the air in the luxurious dining room was fresh and invigorating. The windows were open to the garden, letting in the sun and the breeze. Birds chirped. Maria set the table with a smile. There were no more heavy footsteps or shouts. The house breathed a sigh of relief. Sophia came downstairs, wearing a white cotton dress. Her face, without makeup, radiated natural beauty. "Good morning, Maria. What a delicious smell." "Good morning, Miss Sophia. I made your favorite seafood paella." Sophia sat down. Beside her was the same porcelain teapot, but it was no longer a symbol of fear. Sophia picked it up and poured its contents into her cup. A delicate steam rose with the calming aroma of chamomile, not jasmine. She raised the cup, feeling the warmth. She blew and took a sip with her eyes closed. The taste was sweet, warm, and perfect, with no pain, no blistered skin, no contained tears. Suddenly, her phone vibrated. A message from Michael. "Good morning, Sophia. The weather is beautiful. Don't forget to smile. See you tomorrow at the exhibition. Have a great day." Sophia laughed and replied, "Good morning, Michael. Thank you. Don't be late tomorrow." She put down her phone and leaned back in her chair. She looked around. The shadows of the past had vanished. David was paying his debt in prison. Mrs. Albright drowned in remorse in her hometown. And Jessica? Sophia didn't care what had happened to that leech. Justice had been served. Sophia picked up her teacup again, sipping it slowly as she looked at the morning sun. A smile of peace formed on her lips. A smile of true victory. Of a woman who could no longer be destroyed. The tea that morning tasted much better than any victory in the world.